Oh, good morning, beloveds. Oh, I'm so happy to see so many of you here, and really looking forward to this conversation today. We've had quite a bit of buzz around this topic because it means a lot to so many of us. And this is the first, I'm calling it, this is the first of many conversations around this topic. So as you gather here, I'm so thrilled you're here. As you gather in our sacred circle of wisdom for another Thread Talk, this space that we are co-creating and cultivating so that we can come together to learn and grow and truly step forward into our power. If this is your first time joining us, if you're here live or on the replay, welcome. You are exactly where you need to be. Before we dive in, I would invite you to take a moment to fully arrive. Wherever you are, if it's possible, please turn off your distractions. Silence that phone, close your tabs, and give yourself this time. You've carved out the space to be here, so invest in yourself, invest in yourself to receive. Let's honor that together. Let's do our sacred breathing that we do at the beginning of every one of our conversations. So put your feet firmly on the ground, and I want you to breathe in deeply through your nose and fill your lungs. Fill your lungs with possibility. Hold it for a moment. Let it expand within you, and then exhale very slowly out of your mouth, releasing any doubts, any self-limiting beliefs, any tension, anything that does not serve you. Tonight is a full moon eclipse. Lots of feminine, divine feminine sacred energy flying around. So let's do this again. Let's inhale confidence this time, right in through our nose. As we're holding it, hold space for your worth. As I know, you know your worth. You've done the work. And as you exhale out through your mouth, exhale anything that has been keeping you small. Okay, with that, we're going to step into today's conversation, one that has the power to shift how we see ourselves, how we see our value, how we see our financial future. Pricing is more than numbers. It is about stepping fully into our worth. And so often we as women undervalue our brilliance, offer too much for too little, and struggle to break past financial barriers. And that's why I am beyond excited to introduce Rebekah Radice. Rebekah is a powerhouse. She's built 6 businesses and scaled 3 of them to multi-million-dollar success, and helped over 300,000 entrepreneurs worldwide step into financial abundance. Rebekah and I have known each other for what seems like our lifetime. And we have collaborated on so many things. And I know her mission to be in her bones and blood. And that is to help more of us, more women, to cross over the threshold into abundance. And whatever that looks like for you, maybe that's $1 million, maybe it's 5 million, maybe it's buying an island. I don't know what it is, but there's that big dream that's planted inside you. And she's here today to help us shift our mindset, to elevate our pricing, and to embrace a whole new level of success. So let's dive in. Let's open our hearts and welcome Rebekah to the circle. Welcome, my friend.
Oh, thank you. You know how excited I am to be here, but get to spend any time with all of these women.
Right? I mean, I think we we have found something so magical in this space together. And I what I love about the conversation we're about to have now is that this topic, the topic of what we charge for, what we charge in exchange for our wisdom, for our time, for our energy, has been happening for decades, for my whole life. I know your whole life, my mom's whole life, my grandma's whole life. So generations, our ancestors were having the same conversation. And when we can gather in this sacred space, we can release that fear of talking about money together.
Mhm.
We can release that narrative that's been spoken over us, that money is somehow evil, or the seeking of money or the desire for money is evil, because we know that the more that flows into us, the more that can flow out for us and for others. And so let's talk about that moment in your journey that led you to the work that you are so passionate about today.
Ooh, well, that would be back around 2012. And I don't know how many of you have had a situation like this where you're looking at your bank statement and you're thinking, how am in the world am I working as hard as I am and still struggling to get by? And I had all the skills in the world. I had accumulated all the knowledge. I had a good career from the outside. It looked like I was doing great. But from the inside, it felt like I was stuck. Like I was in a business model that required me to work, 40 hours, what it felt like every single day for every dollar. And I think that's what you're talking about, Deborah, where we've all had those situations where we're looking at it from a broken model. And for me, the biggest expense, we always think our biggest expense is waiting, right? Well, it is because the waiting, it means we're not investing in ourselves. And so when I started to look at instead of, giving away my time for money, I thought about how could I package up and sell what I knew? And that's so much of what we're going to talk about here today. And when you mention charge what you're worth, we're going to talk about that too in terms of what does that look like? What does that really mean? I think that gets a little cloudy and a little murky for a lot of women. And so what I realized back in 2012 is there is a system, there is a method to figure out how can I charge what I'm worth and what are people willing to pay? And when I figured that piece out, that unlocked everything for me. That really was that turning point. And then I realized that I wasn't alone, that women, just like all of us here today, have the same exact problems. Whether it's limiting beliefs, whether it is societal reasons why we don't get out there and charge what we know our value truly is. Well, I figured that out, and I knew, Deborah, that women were my heart, my passion, and helping other women find the same answer that I did because I wasted so much time getting to that place and spending way too many hours trying to figure it out.
I think I think all of us have had that experience. We've all had the moment where we're realizing what we're doing. We're realizing that we're undercharging, or that there's fear holding us back from maybe even writing a proposal, right?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
there is so much psychology around this. As you mentioned, the cultural reasons, right? And when we were having our prep call earlier this week, we were talking about, like, when was the first moment, like, you we realized when we weren't, or that women weren't being paid for their labor. And I had shared with you that I had this moment in therapy where I was saying I remember being a small girl and getting like 25 cents for, cleaning the bathroom, $5 for cleaning my room if I did it by noon on Saturday. And then I would see my mom clean the rest of the house and cook all of the meals, and she didn't get an allowance. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking even back then, like, why doesn't she get an allowance? Because then she has to go to work and that's where she gets her money. And so I think what I'd love to talk about is like, how do we look at that social aspect, that psychological aspect, and figure out why do women tend to underprice themselves, and how that issue is so much deeper than simply a price tag. So let's dig into that.
Yeah, I love that example too, because I think we've all been in that situation. And, from a young age, we're taught to be helpful, agreeable. We're taught to not be too much. I have carried that with me my entire life. So when we start our businesses, we basically carry that mindset. We are feeling guilty about charging what we know we're worth. We justify those discounts and we assume people will only buy if it's affordable. And really, the truth, and I think you mentioned this at the beginning, is pricing isn't just about money, it's about positioning, it's about standing in our value. And unfortunately, when we undercharge, we're basically signaling the market or signaling those people that we're chatting with that our work just isn't that powerful, that we don't believe in our results, that they're not transformational. And so, whether we realize it or not, we're keeping ourselves stuck in that lowest level of value. And that lowest level of value is where so many of us find ourselves very early in our career, where it's the implementation mode and we're so busy because we're creating so many things and we tell ourselves we've got to learn this skill and this skill and this skill. Well, eventually we've got to move out of implementation, but we get stuck there and we spin our wheels over and over again. And I don't know about you, but when I first got started, I used to hate to say my price out loud. I would force myself to speak it out, to talk it out, even to, my husband would be like, enough already, because I would just talk it over and over and over, my pricing, my packages. And at first, I noticed something. I noticed my voice would get a little bit quieter. I'd get a little bit more timid. If he had objections, I would try to justify them before, I even stopped myself.
Mm.
And I think we all do this, especially as women. We've set our price and then we immediately follow up with, but I can work with you with your budget, or I can always find a way to discount, instead of standing in that value, instead of
Mm.
knowing that what we're charging is what we're truly worth. And I had a moment, you talk about moments, I had a moment where this exact scenario played out. And I undervalued, I undercut, said I'd give her a discount if she signed right then and there. And she looked at me and she said, you know what? I was already going to sign and I would have paid double.
Mm.
Yeah. And I just thought, okay, bing, 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 lots of lights going off that, we are all hesitating, or at least we have hesitated around the price. But the biggest problem is that we're hesitating because of our belief in who we are and what we bring to the table, which is why I love this collective, Deborah,
Mm.
and you so much, because that is so much of what you're here to really breathe in, I think, to all of us.
I'm like getting a very like a fire in my belly right now. I would love for those who are here with us live, and if you're listening to the replay, go to the forum and leave a comment in the comments over there. But how many of you have done exactly what Rebekah just talked about? You say, well, let's just use $5,000. You charge $5,000 for whatever that product or service is, and immediately go to, but I can be creative, but I can work within your budget. But like how many? I mean, look, me, absolutely, me, 100%, 100%. Anticipating having to adapt from Kelly. Like this is it, right? Because I think this is really at the heart. Because what in that moment when we've even decided $5,000 is my number, that we already have the contingency plan and the script because we've actually been taught that, Rebekah. We've
Yes.
actually been taught like the art of negotiation, right? The best alternative to a negotiated agreement by
Yeah.
Covey, right? Like all of these things that we were taught to be ready. And I feel like that's part of what chips away at the self-worth. So how do you think that self-worth influences how we're pricing our offers? And not only the pricing, but what exactly that you're talking about? Because that's speaking to our hearts right now, right? Like it's the what comes after the but, right? That negates
Yeah.
the powerful pricing you just presented.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things within that, and we can talk about both of them. One of the big ones is just choosing in your mind that you are a pro, that you're going to go pro, and you are going to own everything that you have ever invested time, money, and energy into. So I want you to think about the education. So, university, school, certifications, seminars, coaches, mentors. How many of you have invested in all of that, or even more than that? I think about it, and I would say for most of you, it's probably tens of thousands. For me, it's at least $200,000 over the years of exactly what I just said: coaches, certifications, continuing education. Thinking about all of the coaches I've had over my 25 years of a career, it's a lot of money. So, what is the price tag that you can put on top of that? And what did that investment actually give you? Well, I would tell you that every single one of those investments gave you something absolutely priceless. You know, it's the skills, it's the knowledge, it's the expertise that are not only valuable to someone else, but very, very saleable.
So what I'm hearing you say to us is slow down, sisters. Get your journal, get your pen, and start writing out all of the time, energy, and resources that you've invested in yourself to get to the point where your wisdom is worth what you're charging.
Yeah.
The conferences, the certifications, the coaches, the consultants, even the clients, right? The clients that we've worked with, every client changes us. We grow, we stretch, we learn. We learn to help them by learning more about what's ailing or hurting them. So this is such a great exercise to go through, right? Just write it down.
Yeah,
Get it
and
out of our
drop it in the chat too. Laura, I think your question really speaks to this. So I think this would be enormously helpful for you to break down what have I really spent over the years to accumulate all that's in my head. And so many times, especially as women, we discount what we know. We say, well, yeah, everybody knows what I know. 100% they don't. They aren't you, first of all. They haven't gone through and walked through your shoes or your journey, and they don't have all of this experience. So when you ask, how do I figure out my pricing, which we can get into that as well, it really does come down to people are paying to learn what you know, all of that wonderful knowledge you have in your head. And more than that, the systems you've put into place, the processes you've created. And what people pay for isn't just necessarily the knowledge, it's all that you're going to unlock for them with how fast and quickly you're going to be able to solve their problems. So
Mm.
that's part of that piece too, is people pay to go fast. People don't want to pay to sit in their mess for 12 weeks of coaching or a year of coaching. And I see a lot of us settle in that because we think we have to give away the farm to justify our prices. So we just keep shoving stuff, bonuses and extras into our offers, thinking, oh, they're going to be able to justify and jump up and down because it's going to feel like a no-brainer offer. Well, the no-brainer offer is truly you. It's how fast you're going to be able to help them get from A to Z and how quickly you're going to get them that result.
Okay, I'm loving this. I'm feeling the energy in the chat as well because I feel like what what you are speaking into us is the reminder, right? Reminding us of why this is so epically important, reminding us why we have read a book a week or a book a month, or why we've attended 100 conferences, why we circle up with masterminds and coaches and consultants. It is so that, I love this, people are paying to learn what you know, and people are paying to go fast. So
Yeah.
I've spent the last 20 years researching, learning, writing, and doing and being in my space. And so somebody coming in wants to take that 20 years and break it down into 4 weeks.
Right.
I think that is so profound. It's such a profound reminder. And I'm wondering, is there language that you use that helps the buyer recognize that? Like, I'm thinking, because you said something earlier about, like, we all assume people want something that's just more affordable. And
Yeah.
affordable is a moving target,
Yeah.
right? A single mom with 3 kids, that affordable looks very different than a dink couple that has 2 chihuahuas and no mortgage, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's very different affordable. So how do we how do we how do we say that? Like, how do we do that? Maybe it's not on our website, maybe it's a script we say to ourselves, but how do we
Yeah.
keep reminding ourselves that that's actually what's happening here?
That's such a great question. And so much of the language is that shifting beliefs. So we're moving away from affordable and speaking directly to prices, which so often we do as a knee-jerk reaction because we're nervous. We don't firmly stand in our values. So we need to shift into language around what I'm providing is life-changing. It's business changing. It's game changing. It's something that you no longer second guess what your actual value is. You're able to describe that in more of an elevated way. So this is going to be an experience like nothing else. You have never done XYZ. So my mentor likes to call it, and Azure is here, so she'll know what I'm talking about, uh, painting the heaven and the hell for your client. And it's what is the hell that they're truly standing in right now that is keeping them from getting to where they want to be? And what is the heaven that they get to when they work with you? And so going through this was really eye-opening for me. You talk about a process of really putting yourself in the shoes of your ideal client. And so much we talk about who is that ideal client, but we don't take the time to think about what they're truly struggling with and what is the price they're paying for not making the decision to work with you. That price is the ultimate price. So when you think about what is it that is holding them stuck in that hell space, and then how you elegantly, beautifully, wonderfully get them to the heaven they want to get to, What does
Yeah.
that look like? What is
Yeah.
that journey? What are the words that they use to talk about the difference between the two? And this is something as, with a background in marketing, so much of what we do in identifying who is your target market, who is that market, and what are they talking about out there. So some of this is research, and I know so many of us real when we talk about research throws us back into college or school days. And really, this is fun because you're going out there to
Love
figure
it.
out, yeah, exactly what are they talking about and what are the words they're using of I have got to get out of where I'm at right now. And
Mhm.
then you're thinking about what are my skills? How am I going to get them to where they truly want to be? And that is the shift in how you're positioning yourself as well.
Mm.
That is the shift in how you're talking about yourself, how you're putting yourself out there in the market, and those exact conversations that you're having.
Okay, so I have so many questions. And I also, this is a good point in the conversation to remind everyone this is the first conversation we're having about this month. Rebekah and I are doing this one on one. We also next week have the collective conversation where we have other Wise Council members who are going to circle up with us and we're going to talk about our stories and the things that we went through related to this as well. And we'll be answering some of the questions that come up today that we can't cover. So if you've got questions for Rebekah or just questions in general about this topic, please drop them in the chat and we will curate those so that we have those, whether we talk about them next week in the collective conversation or Rebekah does videos or we do some blog series. We really, really want to get into this conversation and help to activate everyone that is ready to step into that next level. So what I'd love to shift into is when you talk about people, the provider, is thinking they want things that are more affordable, but you're on the other side saying actually people want to pay more for certain products and services. So how do we use that psychology to our advantage in our pricing?
Yeah, well, first of all, let's talk about affordability because I think thinking in terms of what is affordable or low ticket, it comes with a cost, right? So, not just financially are we undercutting ourselves, but also energetically. Like you can feel the energy rise as we talk about people want to pay premium prices for the knowledge, for the information, for the skills that you have. So you can feel the difference and how people lean into that conversation. You want your ideal client to do the exact same thing, as
Mm,
opposed to what happens. We've all
mm,
been in that conversation, right? That sales conversation where all of a sudden they're kind of leaned out. They're not super interested. We can tell we're losing them right then and there. And that's where we spiral and we slide into the overcompensation or, saying, hey, I'll give you a discount, all those things that we've already talked about. And the big problem around undercutting ourselves is we stay stuck in a volume game. So we think that more clients is better when in reality, it just means more work and less freedom. And we're stuck in this spiral. And worst of all, we're stuck in a shame spiral because we know we are not living up to our full potential. And the worst part of all of this is something we've probably all seen too, is when people come in at a lower price point. So whether you've sold something at 27, at 297, typically those people, what don't they do? They don't commit. They've got the course. They've got whatever that case might be, the ebook they never read, they never followed through with. Whereas opposed, the people that actually pay those premium prices, those are the people that commit. Those are the people that do the work. And those are your ideal clients. So you really do have to switch how you're thinking about money because when people don't invest, they just don't show up. And I would be willing to guess we've all been in this situation where You get into a conversation with somebody, feels like you had a great conversation, you're going to do the follow up, and all of a sudden, boom, what's happened? They've ghosted you, and you don't know what happened.
Mm.
Well, you lost their interest, unfortunately, and more than likely, they just didn't take it seriously enough to either implement or take that next step. And so, when we think about pricing and raising our prices to those premium prices, the only way we can do that is know that we've got the result and the transformation at the end of that, that we can firmly stand in that belief that we know without a shadow of a doubt what we're going to provide is 100 times better than anything else out there in the market. And so that goes back to so much of what we were talking about before, Deborah, which is just really understanding how far you've come in your career. And even if you're just getting started, you're just fresh out of college, you put a lot of time in, you know a lot of things. Sure, you're starting in a different place, but people still have something that that you've somehow accumulated over the years and they want to learn from.
I love this so much. My head is bursting and my heart is bursting and my soul is dancing, all of the things. And I'm seeing it in the chat too, Rebecca. Let's speak to, I mean, there's so many things to, dare I say the overused word, unpack. But
I
there
know I
are.
we hate it now because it's so chat GPT.
But I do still love it. I love the visual of like opening this like abundantly packed suitcase and saying, okay,
Yeah.
let's just talk about this one item that I pack every single time I travel and I never fucking wear it.
Oh, every
Right?
single time. We
Like,
all have that.
right. We all have that. We all have that, the whoopee that never comes out of the suitcase. And I think that what I'm hearing you talking about now is like that emotional connection to whatever that thing is that's holding us back is really the target here.
Mm,
I know that there's women here. I've had personal conversations with many of the attendees today about pricing, about raising their prices, how some of them have experienced like incredible success going from 5,000 to 25,000 for say speaking fees.
yeah.
And then there's the folks who have the 27 or the $97 e-course that have such trouble shifting those people from that 27 or the $97 program into the 95 or the $25,000. So how do we use the psychology that you're talking about here to raise our prices without losing the client base? And do we worry about that? Do we worry about our
Mm.
past client base or are you telling us that there's a new story here?
Yes. So a lot of that. And I would go back to one of the things you said and just touch on that real quick. So people do not pay based on price. They buy based on perceived value. So ladies, how many handbags do you have in your closet right now? Okay, think about the highest price you've ever paid for a purse. Now, a $5,000 purse, right? Maybe you've paid that, maybe you haven't. But those that have, you know it's not about the leather or how fancy it is. It's more than likely it's a status symbol. It's a status symbol that you've made it. Maybe it was a gift to yourself after you did sell one of those $25,000 packages. Or maybe a $10,000 coaching program that you invested in. You didn't invest because it was all about the Zoom calls. Yay, let's hop on more Zoom calls. It was 100% about the transformation you believe that person could give you. I
Yeah.
also think about, that $250 dinner, which I guess isn't super fancy these days with how out of control everything is. But, when you go out for a nice dinner, it's not about the ingredients, it's about the experience. And
Yeah.
you are exactly that. You are about the experience. And when you stop thinking about pricing as a number rather as a signal, you are telling people how to feel about working with you, with your product, with your service. So when you price higher, you create higher demand. And when you price low, you just create doubt. And that's where I think you're
Mm,
talking about, Deborah, where we get
yeah.
stuck in
Yeah.
that, well, do I price here? Well, do I price there? And we're overthinking because we forget it's not at all about that price tag. It's about what am I bringing to this person that solves their absolute biggest problem. Sit in that for a little while and think, what would that be worth to you? Can you even put a price tag on being able to fix your biggest problem in not weeks or months, but maybe days you solve it?
My mind is going to, so I am frugal. Personally, I'm
Yeah.
frugal. And I'm hearing you and I'm realizing, yeah, like my conversations with myself about my pricing, I'm using myself as the filter. And what I'm not recognizing in my frugalness, and this is blowing my mind, right? Uh, the things that I paid for to get the wisdom I have, the coaches, the consultants, the conferences, regardless of if I waited for a deal or not, I still paid hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years to collect and nurture my wisdom. And
Yes.
so it isn't about one product. And so I feel like that might be what happens to some of us as well. Like we think about what would I be willing to pay for this? And it's hard to think about what you'd pay for your own wisdom because you already know it.
Right.
Right? I
Exactly.
mean, I
Yeah.
think that that's the mind where my mind is being blown right now. Is like I realize my pattern is thinking how, why would somebody pay that for this? Like, because I already know this,
Yeah.
right? But it's not
Yep.
me. I'm not my target. Even though I know how to create a niche statement, even though I know how to go out and find my ideal client, I think that nugget right there is so beautiful, as well as the how do I reward myself on the other end. I love that Astra is like, yeah, it's for me, it's jackets and coats and costumes. For
Oh,
some
that's
of us,
awesome.
it's, the $1,000 spa day when we close that big deal. Like we actually do have those things. So include those on your list, ladies. Like inside of the coaches and the conferences and the certifications, what do you use to celebrate? Like where do you invest money to celebrate? Because we
Yes.
pay for what okay, Aster, you're literally reading my mind. We pay for what we value.
Yeah.
And
There you
we've already
go.
stated that we value what it is that we've learned, which is what we're doing now. And that is when you said earlier that people are paying to learn what we know. They're paying us to
Yes.
learn what we know. And
Yes.
there can be like just a disconnect with, well, I already know this, so it's really hard for me to even figure out what somebody would pay for it because I've done it over 20 years. So this is so good. This is so good. So, um, let's talk about sales and salesy and
Mm.
being the Larry the used car salesman vibe. That's
The bro speak.
bro culture, bro speak. The just that feeling, and I again, I've had this conversation with several of those here today and many of our members about not wanting to feel salesy, not wanting to convince people to work with us, not wanting to convert
Yes.
them, right? And this is all very bro internet speak for how we find business, right? And so how does one go about flipping our narrative on that?
Yeah, you use such a good word, the convince piece. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier in being back on our heels when we're talking about what we do, instead of getting people to lean in with us and have a conversation about the experience, about how we are able to change their lives. And that's not about convincing them that we're going to be able to do it. So instead, what happens is when you find the right people, those people that instead of having to push them or educate them or show up time and time again on social media, trying to drag them along with you, you are showing up in your power, knowing absolutely full well the results of what you bring. So you talked a little bit about, Deborah, how do we show them the value? And so much of that is stuff we're all doing right now. Case studies. Case studies are huge with that, know, like, and trust factor. So all of these things, I think, are allowing us to have a very natural conversation instead of listing features. We want to focus on the results that we have gotten. So instead of the little check mark of all the benefits and features, think about how you changed Astra's life overnight, or how Valerie's life was never the same because of what you were able to do when you worked with her. And so those experiences, which I know we all probably here in this room lean into those experiences, are today's selling. That is what get people to connect with you, to listen to you. If you look at just anything you're paying attention to out in social media, think about the reels you scroll, think about the Facebook posts you interact with. 9.5 times out of 10, they are telling a great story. And more than that, they are pulling their ideal client, you, into the narrative. So they are placing you right inside what is happening. So we're not having to force people to connect the dots, force people to understand, what is it, Deborah, that you actually do? I'm not really clear on that. Instead, you've pulled them so deeply into your story, into your messaging, that your right clients are just naturally self selecting into that
Mm,
conversation. They're like,
mm,
boom, that's the person I connect with. So, really, so
mm,
much of this comes down to so much of what you talk about, Deborah, which is getting in alignment with who your people are, what your message is, how you're positioning that message, and how you're putting that out in the marketplace so that it connects with that right person so deeply that no matter what you put out there is an absolute no brainer.
mm. This is so good. So, there are so many questions. I think we're going to have to put some of these in next week's topic. But one thing that I often hear inside our community here and with clients as we're doing the alignment work that you're talking about is, how the frick do I choose which of my magnificent slices of wisdom I'm going to charge people for?
Yes.
Because I'm pretty sure if we ask, well, let's just ask, who here has more than one thing that you could teach other people? So,
100%.
like,
100% of us.
can I put
Yeah.
all of my, can I put my hands and feet in the screen? I think that at this point, especially for these magical midlife mavens that are here with us today, we have a lot of wisdom to offer. And so, if there was one thing that you could tell us today to help us dig down into that, to how do we filter through all of the fabulousness that is us, to
Yeah.
choose that one thing, because you said we don't need to offer everything. We don't need to offer the farm and all of the animals and all of the equipment. Like, how do we choose the one thing to start with that we're going to focus on?
Yeah, well, and that is, I think, the universal question, especially to those of us in this stage of our lives. We have accumulated so many things, and we're like, but I could do this, and I could do this, and I could do that. And so, really, what it's looking at is the intersection of what is your skill set and what is that one thing you could talk about all day long to anybody that walks by and that people are willing to pay for? Because that's the key. Too many times we chase down a passion, but we haven't done the real work out of the market to figure out, oh, are people actually willing to pay for that? So, what I tell my clients is follow the money. Go out there and take a look. take a look at what is your skill? Who do you help? Now go see who's doing that already out in the marketplace. How well are they doing it? What is their pricing? So, where are they pricing that within the market? Is it kind of a mid tier? Does it feel like it's pushing the limits of your comfort zone? Is it higher end? Where are they? And start to write those things down. Write down, what could I do? What could I talk about? Who are those people that are actually buying that? And if there's nobody, okay, well, go back to the drawing board. If there are people, that's a great sign. And that's another problem we get ourselves into is I see so many women that go out there, they start to do this research and they're like, oh my gosh, there's so many people doing the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yay. That is a good sign. That means there's money flowing into that particular space.
Mm,
And that's
so good.
exactly what you want to see because you're not coming in just to be everybody or anybody or speak to all people. You want to be very specific in who your niche is, who you're speaking to, and who you're having that conversation with on a daily basis. So
Mm,
if there's already money flowing, it's wonderful news because that means money can flow directly to you. So the
mm.
key really here is get out, start looking at what's going on in the market. All you have to do is do a simple Google search, then start looking at people's websites, go over to social media, click on the links in their bio. All of these
Yes.
different places we can do this research and then just start writing down what are they selling? What's included in that? What could you model within that? You're not stealing, you're simply taking something that's already proven in the market. And this goes back to so much of what I've done throughout my career, Deborah, is we don't want to just put something out there and hope people show up. That is, yeah, just a complete waste of our time. And too many of us, I would be willing to bet every single one of us on this call has done that and learned the hard way that it's not the smartest way to make money. And so when you do this, and you find who's actually out there doing it really well, there's key benefits because not only are you finding people that are doing it and doing it well, highly successful, now you have potential partnerships. Now you have women that you could reach out to and say, wow, I just stumbled upon you. You're doing something so similar to me. And I've got this whole thing that I'm just getting ready to launch. And now the sky is the limit in terms of how you could start to work together,
Mm.
elevate one another, raise each other up. So it really turns into a beautiful experience. Every time I do it, it kind of blows my mind at how did I not know about this person or how is this person out here doing just amazing things and they weren't on my radar earlier, but it's a pretty fun experience and it's
Yeah.
very eye-opening too because it does eliminate a lot of that. I'm just going to go from the gut and jump out there and spend hundreds of hours putting something together and then wah, 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 nobody buys.
Well, and for those of us who are thinking, well, okay, so I'm already working full time. I already have maybe you have a side hustle or two. Um, this is actually work you do with your clients, where you actually help them do that research. You help them put that stuff together. Is that correct? I feel like
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I attended you did an event. Gosh, was that last month now? I think it was last month.
it was. Uh-huh.
Holy smokes.
Yep.
Earlier in Q1. And what I love about how you work with entrepreneurs, how you work with women is you help us with a lot of this legwork. Like you have the system down where you know what to do, you know what to search, you know who to ask and what, whether that's Google or Chat GPT, whatever, right? Like you have this formula. And so the ultimate result when you're working with clients is that they what when I work with you, what do I walk away with, Rebecca?
Yeah. Great question. So yes, I work with women in so many different roles, leadership coaches, brand strategists, wellness experts, financial advisors, interior designers, you name it. It's across any industry, any niche, because the problem is all the same. We're thinking too small, underpricing ourselves, and we have something within us that is high value, that is worth so much more than we've ever given ourselves credit for. And so, Deborah, I really come in and help women pull that out of them, is to figure out what is it that's living inside you right now that people would pay a premium price for. And then we go out there and we figure it out. So I help them not only do all of the research, but then we put together the entire plan. So, what's your program? What's your offer? What's your service going to look like? And then I'm doing all of that work as far as how are we going to price that out in the market? Because there's a very specific system I have in identifying that sweet spot of where you can come in, how we're going to get you then out into the market. Because I think so many of these programs that I have personally been through, and Astra, I think you kind of talked about this too, that left me hanging, that left me feeling like, wow, I really needed all of the dots connected, not just one or two or three of the dots. And so as I thought about that way back in, 2012, like I talked about at the beginning, Deborah, it was how do I do all of that so that you don't have to think about anything when we're done working together. It's that every single piece from the identification of what it is people are willing to pay for, to the pricing, to the presentation, to the promotion. Now, how are we going to get out there and truly sell this, and not just sell it, but sell it in a way that feels natural to you? So
Yes.
it's very specific to as far as personalization, which I think for all of us here is super important as well.
I agree. So I have a bunch of questions for us to talk about at the collective conversation next week, including I do want to talk more next week when we circle up about the types of people who are coming to you, right? So
Mhm.
it's not all life coaches. It's not all
No.
interior designers, right? And so I want us to circle around and talk about that, about all the different things that women are doing. But for now,
100%.
I want to dig into you a little bit more.
Oh, no.
And my favorite way to do that is through rapid fire. So I will do some rapid fire and then we'll close with some reflection at the end. So let's start with what book, podcast, or resource has made a lasting impact on you recently?
Ooh, you know what? Let me pull it up real quick here so I get it right, because it was so good. How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole La Perea. I think I'm saying her name right. Have you heard of it?
I have not, but I can't wait to add it to the store.
It is bingeable. So I can't remember how long it is, but I listened to it, I think, in like one take. I was doing a long road trip and I could not stop listening, but it is one of those life-changing belief transformation type of books.
I love it. I can't wait to learn more. We'll add that to the forum comments and resources for sure. Okay, let's go fast. How do you celebrate your wins, big or small?
Typically with a really good bottle of wine. Tobin James Blue Bottle, to
Yes.
be specific.
Yes, I love it. What's a dream or goal you're manifesting right now?
Dreamer goal is to take my entire family to Italy, the Amalfi Coast.
Love it. If you had an unexpected free afternoon, how would you spend it?
Ooh, with my mom, my aunt, and my two sisters.
Mm, I
Yeah,
love that.
doing every single thing we love. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. What's one place in the world you'd love to visit or revisit?
It would be Italy. My husband is from there, and his family, of course, is from there, and I have never been there. So,
Oh my
yes,
goodness. Yes.
yes.
What is a quirky or surprising talent you have that most people don't know about?
I can tie a cherry stem with my tongue.
I'm sorry,
How about that?
Rebecca. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Okay,
One of
what
those stupid things we teach ourselves when we're like 8 years old, right?
seriously, I'm pretty sure it was probably from like Dynasty or something that we
Oh,
were
I'm
all trying to
sure.
emulate.
Yeah, one of my mom's soap operas. Who knows?
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Okay. What is your favorite way to spark creativity when you're feeling stuck or in a slump?
Take a run, take a walk. Either
Love
one.
it.
Yeah.
Last one. If you could master one new skill instantly, what would it be?
Coding. I have been dabbling at it forever, and I've worked a lot in that space, and I know it enough to be dangerous, but would
Mm,
love to, yeah, get a lot better at it.
I love that.
Yeah. It's the left brain
Okay.
side of my right brain person.
I like, well, balancing, right? Balancing the
Exactly.
type of knowledge and balancing our energies. I love that. I think that's so beautiful. Okay, so for those collective members, it's easy to get in touch with you because you are a button away inside
Yes.
on the Wise Council page. For those who are maybe listening to the replay, who aren't members yet, or who are listening on the podcast, when it eventually comes out,
Yes.
what is the number one way to get in touch with Rebekah Radice?
Well, you can find me anywhere on social media at Rebekah Radice. So pretty simple, just my name. And then my website, RebekahRadice.com.
Excellent. Perfect. We'll
Mhm.
make sure, of course, to include all of that. Thank you so much, Rebekah. I'm going to get us closed out. Unless there's one bit of advice, something that's sitting on your heart that you want to speak over us.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for me here is just to get out and do it. Pick something that is on your heart and that you know in your heart you are undervaluing and go all in.
Love it. Choose the thing. Do the
Choose a
thing.
thing.
Choose the thing. Oh, beloveds, as we wrap up today's thread talk, I am feeling inspired. I have a feeling you are too. I want to thank each one of you for showing up for yourself, engaging in this powerful conversation. This, the insights that we've gained today, may they inspire you to embrace your true value. May you be able to confidently step into your worth and take bold steps towards creating the abundance and impact you deserve. Heartfelt thanks to Rebekah for sharing your wisdom, your journey, your passion, with all of us. Your guidance on pricing, on mindset, on building a sustainable business will undoubtedly empower all of us to move forward with clarity and purpose. May you all continue to honor your worth. May you align with your highest potential and walk boldly into your next chapter. As I mentioned, next week, we are talking even more about this topic. We are circling up. We're bringing the sacred table expander. We'll have a group of Wise Council members. And if you are feeling called, if you're a member and you're feeling called to join us, if you've got a story you want to share, that is the moment for you to flip on your camera and speak your truth and share your wisdom with us. So here is to stepping unapologetically into our power, embracing our financial and energetic freedom that is rightfully ours. Beloveds, until next week, may you walk with grace. See you soon. Bye for now.